This is a breakthrough day. There is an opportunity to have a breakthrough. Now, there is also an opportunity to have things really destabilize. Welcome back to the Astrology Report, this time for May 8th through May 14th of 2023. My name is Kim White. If you don't know me already, make sure you like this video if you like what's going on in this video as well. Make sure you subscribe if you are interested in keeping up with all of the current astrological transits that are going on. As well, comment. Let me know what you're excited for about this week, because this is quite an exciting week, in my opinion. It's not that the rest of the weeks have been bad. We're now off of eclipse season, but this week we finally have Mercury stationing direct. That doesn't happen till the very, very end of the week. But as this week goes on, the transits get a little bit easier and easier and easier. And I talk about this in my monthly rising sign horoscopes that I do over on my Patreon. So if you're interested in supporting the channel and getting monthly rising sign horoscopes and getting Ask Me Anything live streams and getting monthly overviews, as well as a Discord access, ad-free content, as well as early release content, go over to my Patreon. But in my monthly rising sign horoscopes, I really talk about May being a really easy month. Things just kind of slow, like everything's really focused in the same area for a while. But as things generally start to calm down, like the eclipse is a little gnarly, but then things just slowly get better and better. And that's where this week that's how this week kind of starts off. So anyway, we're starting this week off with the moon making a trine to Jupiter, making a square to Neptune, and then the moon will ingress into Capricorn and go opposite Venus. So again, just a couple lunar transits to start the week off. The moon is at the last degrees here of Sagittarius. It's going to make a trine to Jupiter. Love that, okay? Last week, I would have talked about that moon in Sagittarius making that square to Saturn and Pisces, where you can't just run away from all of your problems. You have to kind of create the solution within first. But what's nice about the moon making that trine to Jupiter is there's a lot more excitement. It's like, okay, I can't just run away from my problems, but I can muster up the strength and the courage and the belief in myself to conquer those things. Belief comes from like faith. Maybe I didn't word that correctly. I think a better way to say it is like, you're never going to get to a place that you want to be at without taking risks. In order to take a risk, you have to have faith and you have to believe in that outcome. And if you think that you could never, ever achieve something, well, that's what's going to be true for you. But at least if you can believe that that could be a possibility and you are willing to take the risk, if you're willing to muster up enough courage and strength and faith in yourself, you can get there. And that's what I like about the moon in Sagittarius making this trine to Jupiter. We only have like 5 more minutes left of Jupiter in Aries. So if you're still struggling with that confidence, if you're still struggling with that capability, really try to sit on that for a little bit. Like Jupiter's about, again, faith, optimism, abundance, and Jupiter being in the sign of like action and war and aggression and just confronting things. We'll only have so much more time to utilize that energy. And now that Jupiter's getting to those last degrees, this would be a really good time to squeeze all of that juice out before it's gone. The moon will make a square to Neptune. And the issue with this is if you are expecting to know how to get there, that might be an issue. Like the moon making a square to Neptune and making a trine to Jupiter is pretty much like, hey, I don't know exactly how it's going to work out. I don't know exactly how I'm going to get to where I need to go. All I know is that I have the strength and the courage to get where I need to go. So you can't think of everything as a like detailed oriented plan. Sometimes you just have to have the belief, the courage, and the willpower to just continue through, and the plan and the path forward lays itself out. And so don't be concerned about the specifics. I think with the moon and Sag squaring Neptune, it's very easy to be like, well, how am I going to get there? And what does this look like? And what if this? And it's like, you can't worry about the what ifs. You can't worry about, oh, what if this fails? What if this fails? I think I would have talked about this last week. It's like, what if it goes great? What if it works out more in your favor? What if it's better than you ever wildly imagined? So on Monday, don't get too overwhelmed with the plan. Just remain strong, faithful, confident. The moon will then ingress into Capricorn, and it's going to go opposite Venus in Cancer. The big thing with this is like, again, I talk a lot about the moon in Capricorn being a time to like detach from your emotions. It's not really easy to express your emotions. But as the moon goes into its sign of detriment, which is kind of a triggering term in my opinion, like sometimes in the astrology world, we have these labels for certain placements that, you know, kind of just like stick to hardcore. Like, yes, the moon is in detriment, right? That doesn't mean everything's bad. What is that good for? I think it's good for detaching from your emotions. Like, even earlier today before I was recording this video, like I was a little anxious, I was a little worried, and I was like, I just need to start doing something. I just need to get out of my head, focus on something. And now I feel a lot better. But as the moon goes into Capricorn and goes opposite Venus in Cancer, like there's something nourishing about this. Now, this is an opposition, so there's things at odds. And while the moon's in Capricorn, there is this, and again, Venus is ruled by the moon, Mars is ruled by the moon right now. So whatever the moon is doing is kind of dictating a little bit of the Mars-Venus stuff. But as the moon goes into Capricorn, there's this sense of, anxiousness and not being able to fully connect to something. It's like, have you ever had, as a guy, like, I feel like guys can struggle with this more, but have you ever dealt with a situation that required more empathy or sympathy, and just for whatever reason, like that's turned off, or like it's hard for you to connect with that? And for some people that's just like, well, you have trauma, and so like there's a safety barrier or safety mechanism that you develop to where you don't connect to that. That's kind of like the moon in Capricorn. But with Venus in Cancer, if Venus is about connection and value and fun and enjoyment, she's in Cancer. That sense of being nourished, that sense of being safe, that sense of being secure, that sense of just enjoying good feelings. The hard part is like the moon's in Capricorn. It's like, for men, it's very hard for us to express our feelings. It's not always like embedded in us. And so there can be difficulty. And the way I almost look at this with the moon in Capricorn going opposite Venus in Cancer is like, think of like a war soldier, like PTSD vet, and you go into like a safe space and everyone's like around you, cuddling you, hugging you. And there's like this, like, it feels good, but there's this natural inclination to be like, get off of me. Like, that's something that, again, I feel like all guys struggle with this, but that's something I know I've struggled with personally, is like where there is a safe environment and there's like the sense of like, oh, you can feel safe and protected here. It's like, no, get that shit away from me. That's kind of like the feeling on Monday, where while there is this like safer space, there is this feeling good stuff, there's like a natural opposition to it. Like your emotions just aren't there yet, or aren't in there yet. So Monday, I think there's a lot of confidence going on, but as the moon goes into Capricorn and goes opposite Venus, it will feel a little uncomfortable feeling good. You know what I mean? Like for some people, I know people that thrive in stressful environments, and when everything is safe and sound is when they get really worried and when they get like really uncomfortable. And that's how I look at Monday. So just because nothing's, fires aren't popping off everywhere on Monday, that doesn't mean, anything bad. It's just, it can make you a little uncomfortable, make you a little bit anxious. But a way I would do this is, again, with the moon in Capricorn, it's better to just detach from the emotional part of it. Like, again, you can accept love, you can accept being embraced without having to completely let your guard down. Like, you can acknowledge it, absorb it without completely collapsing, if that makes sense. So let's move on. We get into Tuesday. The moon is going to make a sextile to Saturn, and it will make a trine to Mercury, and the sun will conjoin Uranus. So this is a little bit, it's not like, well, let's just kind of go into it. First off, the moon earlier in the morning is going to make a sextile to Saturn. I think with all of this water and earth stuff going on right now, more than just like the air stuff that we've had for so long and the fire stuff, what I like about the earth and the water stuff going on is it's very calming. It's very safe and secure in a lot of ways. And as the moon's in Capricorn making the sextile to Saturn and Pisces, there is a level of, it's like, for example, let's go back to that analogy I used for yesterday. You're taking things in, you're absorbing stuff, you still have your guard up, but then afterwards that ends, right? And you can walk away saying, okay, I was not able to put my guard down, but wow, that did feel really good. Like, something that I find so interesting about being a human, maybe this is just like my Venus in Gemini in my 7th house and my moon in Libra in the 11th, is like physical touch is really healing. Like, I forgot, I think this is a Judith Hill book I read about like the moon in Libra, like literally needs like physical touch to like heal. And I look at this moon in Capricorn sextiling Saturn and Pisces transit as like, maybe you weren't able to let your guard down, but there's the sense of like, that is a possible, future. That is something that can happen. And it's like you walk away from something that maybe you were uncomfortable with, but then you walk away and you go, that was nice. That was something different for me. That was a change for me. And I feel good about it. Even though it's hard to express your emotions about it, it's hard to, feel like, wow, like that was amazing. And now I feel safe and secure. It's like, you know, if you have someone who's like really hardened by the challenges of life, like they're not, it's like a stray cat or a stray dog. Like if you come up to them, they're going to like look at you like I'm ready to attack you. And you might pet them once and they kind of look at you like that felt good, but I don't want to acknowledge that felt good. That's how I look at this moon in Capricorn opposite Venus in Cancer going to the sextile of Saturn and Pisces is like, hey, you got to just pet that stray dog and let it calm down. It's not going to, like, first stroke, it's not going to go, okay, like, I trust you now. It takes a little time, and you'll notice a change in that dog's behavior from feeling like, oh my gosh, like, the whole world's against me, I can die, to actually feeling safe and secure. I think that dog analogy is actually really good. The moon will then make a trine to Mercury. And again, Mercury's retrograde. We're rethinking things. We're reviewing things. And we're almost done with it. And it's in the sign of Taurus when we talk about value and security, stability. And so I think as Mercury's been retrograde here, there's this like, okay, I'm rethinking this area of my life. Now that there's been this emotional experience that I've had, I can now understand what changes I've been making mentally here a little bit better. And then the other thing that's going on Tuesday is the sun's going to be conjoining Uranus. This is a breakthrough day. There is an opportunity to have a breakthrough. Now, there is also an opportunity to have things really destabilize. So what I would suggest is if you're feeling like, I don't know how to say it, like you ever just get like a twitch, like an impulse, like I just got to do this, or you're feeling like doing something really like nuts just to throw your life in chaos, because that's how we self-sabotage. This is a great day for that, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend you doing it. This is a great day, though, for a breakthrough. The sun is our willpower, our vitality, like what literally brings us energy in life. And as it conjoins Uranus, it's very electrifying. It's very, disrupting. It's very innovative. And there is this level, there is an energy that you can access that allows you to break through to something, that allows you to change something about yourself and to feel electrified, to feel liberated. And I would really recommend leaning into that. And I think this moon transit offers a little bit of that guidance for that. Just the other thing is there might be this feeling of needing to do something different or needing to just disrupt things and self-sabotage. So I would recommend not doing the self-sabotage part. I'd recommend allowing yourself to go through an experience, and here, the thing is, the sun's in Taurus. Like Taurus is a fixed sign. It's the fixed signs, Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, Leo. We're hard-headed. We don't like changing our minds. We are who we are. You can't change us. Well, we can change us. It just has to be our idea first. So if you know a fixed sign person, you could tell them the same thing of what they should do, and they won't listen to you. And then someone else will say it, or like they'll watch a YouTube video about it and they're like, hey, I'm going to do this thing. And then you're like, I've been telling you to do that for years now. Well, that's just how we are. So the sun conjoining Uranus is allowing space to make those changes, to liberate yourself from something. But what is nice about it, again, it's in Taurus when we talk about security, safety, value, stability, all great things, right? We get into Wednesday, and on Wednesday, the moon will then make a trine to Uranus. It will go opposite Mars. Then it will square Jupiter. Then the moon will ingress into Aquarius and conjoin Pluto. A lot of lunar stuff going on Wednesday. Expect it to be a little all over the place, and not in the most fun way. The moon will first make a trine to Uranus. Again, that just carries forth that Sun-Uranus energy of feeling a breakthrough, feeling stimulated, feeling, like, whoa, I feel, exciting and electrifying. The moon making a trine to Uranus helps with that. But then the moon will make an opposition to Mars in Cancer. It's one of those things where with Mars, again, being about fights, conflicts, our energy and our ambition, it's in Cancer. We're feeling very defensive. We're feeling crabby. We're feeling unmotivated. We're feeling insecure. And as the moon in Capricorn goes opposite Mars in Cancer, it's like you have to detach from the insecurity in order to get where you need to go. And I think if you are leaning more into the insecurity, I think if you're leaning more into feeling anxious, you might pop off in a totally ridiculous way on Wednesday, where you're just like, no, I don't want to do it. And like again, it's that hangry mentality. It's like you're not fed in some sort of way. And so when you're not fed, when your basic needs aren't met, it's easy for you to lash out and project that anger or the insecurity onto other people. I would really recommend on Wednesday to not do that. However, there is a susceptibility to that. But on Wednesday, it's like you kind of have to detach from your emotions. And you might have to do something that you don't really want to do, but you kind of have to do. I can't think of the best analogy off the top of my head at this moment, but it's like, for example, if you struggle in social situations and you have social anxiety, let's say you're a guy like approaching a girl or something like that, and you don't, and like you're feeling insecure and you don't want to do it, you kind of have to detach from the emotional part of it in order to just do something that you know is going to be good for you, which is socializing, which is approaching people. And maybe she goes, no, you're ugly and stupid, go away. Hey, it's a numbers game. Like that's, one no, it's like what, 10 no's to get a yes or something like that. That's the way I look at this. If you have to approach something that you're uncomfortable doing, it's going to be difficult to detach from your emotions from it, but I think that's going to be the best way to go about it. However, I think I look at this as just very crabby and feeling very like, projecting emotional rage onto people. Like, have you ever just lashed out on someone that you're like, I shouldn't have done that. I was upset about, how my father abandoned me when I was a kid or something like that. And you realize it wasn't about them. It was about you. That's what's going on here on Wednesday. So I'd really recommend not going too crazy overboard. But then after the moon goes opposite Mars, the moon will make a square to Jupiter, where the moon in Capricorn, again, detached from our emotions, not like feeling maybe even insecure, squaring Jupiter in Aries is that feeling of like, well, I can't do that. Well, that's not possible for me. I just can't do it. And I think as the moon goes opposite Mars, there's this like triggering response that we have. And then that goes to the moon squaring Jupiter, where it's like, well, now I just can't do it. It's like, for example, like going back to the guy at the bar analogy, you're on your way to approach a girl and then something happens where maybe she like walks away like without like you actually getting to approach her. And you're like, well, there's that. I can't do that. I guess I'll never, meet a girl, or I'll never be able to do this. It's just going to be easy to just write off everything. I think with the moon in Capricorn squaring Jupiter in Aries is like, hey, this might not have been you cannot be afraid to fail. Like every person that you admire or that has done something that you want to do has had more failures than success. Failure is the prerequisite for success. And if you want to have any sort of success, whether that's with money, with a job, with relationships, with your family, you are going to fail. You don't know how to do things. Like no one's given you a book on life. Maybe that's like the Bible or the Quran for people or something like that. But like there's no instruction manual of how to do things, especially tailored in relationship to you specifically. You have to figure it out for yourself. And you might fall flat on your face. You might fail, but that can't stop you from doing the thing that you like have a calling to do. Like if you want to be more social, if you want to, get rid of your social anxiety, like you can't just let one person saying like, you go away from me, like, beat you down and just you go stupid, and you just kind of spiral into a abysmal like self-deprecating like self-dialogue. The moon making that square to Jupiter, you have to say, okay, that was an experience. Maybe I failed at it, but what can I do differently to make it better? Like you can't, when you're asking for feedback with people, like this happens all the time in like art or music, like someone might give you feedback and feedback is sometimes harsh, but always fair. And you kind of have to just suck it up. You can't take it personally. If you want to be better at something that you want to be better at, you're going to be receiving feedback. But if you take it personally, like, oh, like maybe like, like someone listens to your music and they're like, oh, I don't really like that. You can't make it about yourself. You got to go, okay, well, what can I do to make it better? Since that is what the ultimate goal here is. So on Wednesday, try not to beat yourself up. Try not to just allow one negative experience to make you say, well, I'm not capable of doing anything and I can't actually go forward. Because then the moon is going to go into Aquarius and conjoin Pluto. what's difficult about this is, for one, like Moon Pluto transits are always going to bring up anxiety. Like Pluto is like power, control, fear, and the dark forces. And with the moons there, like we're super hypersensitive to that. We're going to feel like emotionally like connected to that. And so if you are letting other people's opinions get to you, if you're letting all of that stuff overwhelm you, I don't like the moon in Aquarius conjoining Pluto transit for you. But I think what it's a great tool for, or another way of utilizing this energy, is to go like, okay, I'm triggered. I didn't like that, but I'm going to transmute or transform. There I go, using that word I don't like using, transformation. This is a great opportunity to go, okay, that was an experience, but now I have an opportunity to change my emotional response to it. Now I can be responsible for my emotions, which, let's be real. This whole world is designed to be, you're not responsible for your emotions. It's everyone else's problem. It's everyone else's fault. You got to be responsible for yourself and your emotions. Be a fucking grown up about it. And this moon conjoining Pluto is an excellent opportunity to go, how can I change my emotional response about that? And it's going to be difficult. Like I have been saying, none of this is easy. If you want to change your life, it is not paved in a gold road. It is a treacherous trail that is not carved out, and that you've got to trailblaze. So as the moon conjoins Pluto, allow yourself, like it's going to feel overwhelming. It's going to feel triggering, but that is the next step to get to where you want to be. Let's go to Thursday. Thursday, not much is happening. It's just the moon making a square to Mercury. I want to double check that. Yeah, it's just the moon making a square to Mercury. While Mercury's in Aquarius, squaring Mercury, while the moon is in Aquarius, squaring Mercury in Taurus. It's going to be difficult to change your mind. With the moon in Aquarius, we are a little bit more sensitive to our communities, to society, to like more, like, I don't like using the word ideals all of the time for Aquarius stuff. Idealism is much more of a Jupiter and then like a Neptune thing. But Aquarius is sort of like a framework for ideals. Like, that's probably a better way to put it. It's like the structure of an idea. And as the moon's in Aquarius, where we're a little bit more, you can argue a little bit more detached. Like Aquarius is more concerned about like humankind and society rather than like the actual individual that implicates. And as the moon's in Aquarius, we're thinking of all these bigger ideas of how to, work with people or how to connect with people. It's going to square Mercury retrograde in Taurus, where that may not line up necessarily with how you're thinking. Like if Mercury's retrograde in Taurus and we're rethinking value and we're rethinking security, I think this moon in Aquarius, like for example, feedback is oftentimes harsh but always fair, but it's not always like beneficial to you to know and understand everyone's opinions or to really give all of your emotional energy to everyone else's thoughts and opinions of you. And I look at this as an excellent opportunity to go, like, to maybe get some of that feedback and go like, why do I place value there? Why do I care about what other people think of me? And I think as Mercury's retrograde in Taurus, there's this like ability to say, okay, I don't necessarily like that way. I don't see it that way anymore. I don't value that. At least my mindset is not in a place where I can see the value in that. Because this whole Mercury retrograde is about shifting our relationship to value, seeing a different form of security, seeing a different form of stability, seeing a different form of beauty. And I just think as the moon's in Aquarius squaring there, it's like, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Like you can get, that's what I always think is interesting is like with art is like a whole group of people like, this art is ugly. And then you get like one person being like, I love it. I'll pay $5 million for this piece of artwork. That's kind of what's going on Thursday. It's just not going to line up exactly. And that's not bad. I just think it's going to be a great notice. It's going to be great to have awareness of that. Like if you're getting feedback, or if you're connecting with other people's opinions, or if you're trying to see this bigger worldview and how it's going to work for everybody, you're going to go like, is that actually in alignment with what I value or with what I want? We get to Friday. The moon will then make a square to Uranus and it will sextile Jupiter. And then we have one of our highlights for this week, which is Mercury Mercury being retrograde, making a sextile to Saturn and Venus. As the moon squares Uranus, that happens much more earlier in the morning on Friday. Like that's going to disrupt some things. Like that whole kind of connecting to people in a wider way. The moon's going to square Uranus, where that just might get disrupted somehow. Like, I don't want to say expect accidents, but the moon squaring Uranus is kind of like instability, like on an emotional level. Okay. So you'll feel a little unstable, but then the moon's going to be making a sextile to Jupiter in Aries, where if you can't be concerned with everyone's thoughts and opinions, but maybe you do have a subset of that group that says like, hey, I really do like that. Like, I do think that that's a good area. And I think the moon in Aquarius sextiling Jupiter in Aries is that there's at least some feedback, or there's at least some people that allow you to see something different, to give you, again, that confidence, that motivation, that faith in yourself that you can achieve what you want to achieve. Not everyone's going to like your shit. Not everyone likes you. And if you're trying to develop yourself in a way that everyone's going to love you, you're going to be miserable. If you don't love yourself, like, it's not that you're never going to get love from other people, but like people that are confident and true to who they are, that are authentic to who they are. And I look at this moon sextiling Jupiter in Aries as like, you might find that subset of people that, again, 100% of people aren't going to agree with you, but maybe 30% of them do. And then they allow you to they give you some sort of feedback or some sort of guidance that makes you go, okay, I am capable of doing this. I do have the willpower to do this. I do have the faith in myself to do it. And so like this whole lunar transit is very like emotionally turbulent. But by the time we get to the end of Friday, the moon, sextiling Jupiter, there is this level of feeling good about that and gaining a lot more of that confidence. The other thing, the highlight, is Mercury is going to be still retrograde, making a sextile to Saturn in Pisces. And I love this. In fact, Mercury will also make a sextile to Venus. As Mercury's been retrograde and we're rethinking this area of our lives, again, you got to look at what house Taurus rules in your chart. And if you don't know that, look up your birth chart. But if you want to know what that means, go to my Patreon, go to my monthly rising sign horoscopes, talk all about it. Or watch my Mercury retrograde video that I put out, which most of you have probably watched by now. But Mercury making the sextile to Saturn and Venus is allowing a much more structural, like Saturn's about limitations, responsibility, discipline, maturity, time, commitment, and it's in a mutable sign. It's changing. Those virtues in our life are under, I don't want to say a reconstruction, but under a change, under an adaptation period. And I think as Mercury retrogrades, Mercury being retrograde sextiling Saturn in Pisces is like feeling that sense of adapting to a new paradigm. And I think that's really constructive. Like, I actually really like Friday's moon transit for Mercury sextiling Saturn to be a little bit more receivable. And Mercury's also going to sextile Venus in Cancer. Venus is ruled by Taurus, so Mercury's in Venus's sign. So whatever Venus in Cancer is doing is kind of dictating the Taurus stuff a little bit. And there is this sense of like, oh, I am taken care of. I am safe. I do feel nourished from this. And I'm also being able to see a new paradigm. I can change. I'm not just restricted to one way of doing things for the rest of my life. So Friday seems really like comforting. Yes, there might be some instability there in the morning, but the rest of the day is like kind of looking around and being like, all right, this is how I'm seeing things differently, and I'm actually enjoying this more. I love Friday for that. Whoops, that's Saturday, or I mean Sunday. We get to Sunday, the moon will then ingress into Pisces, and it's going to conjoin Saturn and trine Venus, while Venus trines Saturn. Love Saturday. Love it. On Saturday, the moon will conjoin Saturn in Pisces, where now that the moon's in Pisces, we're a little emotionally loosey-goosey. We're a little bit of here. We're a little bit of there. Conjoining Saturn is like trying to concretize that a little bit. Like, Saturn puts restrictions and boundaries in areas. And if Pisces, like this free-flowing, it's the passive version of Jupiter, right? If Jupiter, Sagittarius is like, I want to explore and I want to expand and I want to go out into the world. Pisces is like, I want to explore within. But Saturn is giving you a framework to do that. I think as the moon goes into Pisces and conjoins Saturn, there's this level of like knowing what walls and knowing the what's the word I'm looking for? The foreground, or knowing the parameters of where that exploration lies. The moon will also make a trine to Venus in Cancer while Venus is trining Saturn. And there's this level of safety and security that's happening here where it's like, okay, for example, let's say I've never done ayahuasca. I've done like DMT and acid and stuff like that. If you're just going to do acid or ayahuasca by yourself in a forest that you've never seen before, it's going to be easy to maybe lose it a little bit. But like this moon in Pisces with Saturn, it's like you're in a safe and controlled environment. So you are allowed to explore your emotions in this safe and secure environment. And that's what I look at. Like I look at like Saturday as like a safe and controlled environment to explore your emotions. So a good example of that would be like, again, like an ayahuasca journey. You're going to some forest. Sure, you may not know it, which is the fun part, but you're in a safe and controlled setting. There's some sort of teacher or guide, or shaman or some person to guide you through that. And it's in a safe and secure location. You're not just like, over here and over there. So Saturday looks awesome for that sort of stuff. I think Saturday is just an excellent time to explore all of the emotions, feeling safe and secure. Then we get to Sunday. The moon will then make a trine to Mars and conjoin Neptune, and Mercury finally stations direct. And I love how we wrap all of this up, because by the time we get to Sunday, the moon in Pisces making a trine to Mars in Cancer. I love that, because while Mars has been in Cancer, we're taking care of things that we need to take care of. Yeah, we're feeling crabby and emotional, and we're whining and bitching and complaining about doing it. But hey, like there's times for that, right? The moon in Pisces making a trine to Mars in Cancer is like, okay, like I can contort my emotions to make this feel better about doing it. Like the moon in Capricorn opposite Mars in Cancer is like, I don't want to do it, and it's gross, and get away from me. Versus the moon in Pisces trining Mars in Cancer is feeling much more like allowing that space to happen, allowing you to go, this is what I need to take care of. And I'm in a much more a better emotional state to do those things. The moon will be conjoining Neptune. So there is a level of, I don't like using the word deception all the time, simply because I don't want you guys to be like, am I being deceived? Is someone coming after me? There's a level of truth to that. But as the moon conjoins Neptune, I think it's just feeling very saturated with those feelings. Again, we have all this water stuff. I mean, Jupiter's just about to go into Taurus. That happens next week. It's like all earth water right now, essentially. So feeling safe, feeling secure, feeling nourished, feeling like wet, nutrient-rich soil is how I kind of look at all of this stuff. And the moon conjoining Neptune is like, if you have a garden and you have all these flowers, I'm looking at my outside where a garden will be eventually when we get to May, or I'm recording this in April still. So when we get to May and the flowers actually start to bloom in Denver, it's like looking at your garden and be like, look at how beautiful this is. Like when you, like in Denver, everything's like snowy and dead all winter. And then you get to spring and there's all these colors and there's all these smells. And it's like this oversaturated feeling of like, beauty. And that's what I do like about the moon conjoining Neptune, is feeling very goo goo gaga about everything. And there's excellent times for that. Like the moon conjoining Neptune, I always look at it as like being not sold or bought into. I don't think that's the right word, but like, you ever watch a movie where the cinematic magic just works on you? Like that's the moon conjoining Neptune, where you're like, wow, this is hitting me emotionally, and all of the distortion and all of the weird things are just like doing it for me. Like you're emotionally invested into it now. Technically you have been deceived, but it's not always a bad deception. So that's what I like about that. And I know Mercury is still retrograde right here. It's still red. But later on that evening, Mercury stations direct. There's a lot more sense of clarity about the situation now. Mercury's been retrograde, so it's a time of delays. It's a time of rethinking. It's a time of reviewing. There's going to be miscommunications. There's going to be slowdowns. Mercury comes direct again, pretty close to the North Node. And there is this level of like, okay, now I have my mindset much more fixated on what needs to happen, on what I value, what I appreciate, what I find beautiful, what do I want to enjoy? And you'll have this level-headedness of like being able to go after that stuff. So it's like the very end of Sunday, like this week is just mostly like lunar transits and a couple of nice other transits. But I think it's just kind of the slowdown to get yourself to a safe mental space to move forward with the things that you want to. So I really like this week. And we get to next week, we're going to have Mars trine Neptune. Actually, I don't think Mars trines Neptune next week, but it might. Stay tuned. Subscribe to see if it does. Jupiter will ingress into Taurus next week. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. I'm coming out with the Jupiter and Taurus video, and it's going to make a square to Pluto. That's going to be pretty crazy. We're going to have the new moon in Taurus. This will be our first lunation in the sign of Taurus. That's not an eclipse since November of 2021. Then Mars will go into Leo, and it's going to go opposite Pluto and square Jupiter and Taurus. So there's a whole fucking thing going on there. And we get into Gemini season. It's looking like an awesome next week. And when I say awesome, I mean like there's just a lot of significant change going on next week. And I think that's something to be excited about. So anyway, those are my final thoughts. This week's fun. My final thoughts are also, make sure you like this video if you like the content, subscribe if you want to keep updated with all of the current astrological activity, and comment. Let me know what you're excited for about this week. Let me know what you're going through. I want to hear it from you guys in the comments below. So with that being said, I love and appreciate you guys, and I'll be seeing you next week.